Hello. That is not how I start this show. I don't like that.
That's
Hello
not,
doesn't sound
no.
right. Hello doesn't sound right.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Like a bill
Um,
collector is calling hello.
Hi, is this DJ?
Ew. I want to go home and I'm in my house.
Well,
That's disgusting.
anyways, what's
Yeah.
good? Welcome into another episode of Land Grant Podcast Network's Power 2 Podcast. I'm Jordan. I'm here with DJ, and we're potting again.
Yes, it is a thing that we do every week. Even though sometimes it feels like every 2 business days because
No, no, for real.
2024 has somewhere to be.
It's in and out. But hey, I'm not
She's
complaining because the way my 2024 has been set up, I need to see 2025.
I'm
It just
Cat Williams opened up a door that we should close at this point. Um It's a little scary. So yes,
I
yes,
can't believe that was the same year.
I can.
That was like early, wasn't
It
it?
was January. It was literally in January.
That doesn't feel like that was in January. It has
Yeah,
been a crazy year.
it's
Um,
yeah. You know those little things that they do where it has like the memes from the stuff that happened every month.
mhm.
You know what I'm talking about? I feel like each month has like 4 things from this year.
Oh
Like
yeah, like those like this is what like remembering the year, like this is what happened sort of stuff.
yes, yes, and it has like a meme in reference to like whatever that major event from the month is. I feel like it's been like 3 or 4 per month.
For sure, for sure.
Oh my god. Anyways, how are you in your red Buckeyes? Not to be confused with another type of red
Yes,
hat.
not to be confused. The one and only, the Ohio State. I'm okay. Before I forget, I would just like to say, um, we are doing new things.
We
I
are.
I had a revelation one day, and the revelation was that there's a lot of people who podcast who are much worse than us, who are I don't know, I don't want to say famous, but just have
Have
a
a platform.
platform. There we go, have a
Yes.
platform. And we do not. And it is largely because I have a life. And so I don't have the time to um, do social media, but that is largely an excuse. And so this is a long way of saying we are now going to be trying to up our social media presence, and we will for sure be putting all of these episodes on YouTube.
The
So if you
YouTubes.
are a visual person, if you would like to see our beautiful faces, and they are beautiful, I will tell you that
Especially mine. Especially mine.
you can follow our YouTube channel at Get Defensive Sports Network. That is Get Defensive Sports Network. And you may be wondering briefly where that came from. Let me take you down a quick trip down memory lane of DJ
Yep,
and
yep,
I
yep.
one day, which is how, to be fair, this is how so many of our this is how like so many things that we do start on like a random like conversation.
Yeah.
Like not that like I always talk about like wanting to like go down to like Dallas for like games and things like that. When we both have a little bit more money and the economy is better, I fully expect to like be in Dallas and after like 10 days of having a conversation because we just like say things as a joke and then it starts. And we were like talking and like during the pandemic, I think, and I was just like, man, I'd like to do a podcast. And she was like, I would do a podcast. And I'm like, do you want to do a podcast?
And we're like, sure. Well,
Are we
because we
about to do
were
a podcast?
we were having like daily discourses on Twitter, like threads and threads and threads of discourses about just all these different sports topics. So we were like, man, like we talk to each other about sports so freaking much. Like we may as well just start our little pandemic project and start a podcast together. So that
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, was that like in the spring of 2020? It was pretty early in the year. I feel
No,
like
I
it was
think it
like
was
for summer.
it may have been 2019.
No, the pandemic had already fully happened.
Well, we started in the fall of
Okay. Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, because we had yeah. So either way, we were like, "Oh my gosh, we should do this," and so we went through scores and scores and scores and scores of different names, brandings, all kinds of things, and we settled on Get Defensive Podcast, which was our first project that we did together 832 years ago.
Yep. And now we're here later.
And now we're here.
And as a throwback, because as you all know, hopefully, I do 2 podcasts. I do one with DJ and I do one with Dante. And they are both on the Land Grant Podcast Network feed. But the commonality of these projects are me and my friends. And so for YouTube, we wanted to create our own presence. They are not moving from the LGPN feed. You will always find this here on Monday and on Thursday. But again, if you are a video podcast watcher, you can follow us and watch on Get Defensive Sports Network on YouTube. And eventually, we will have a consistent presence of at least YouTube Shorts and TikToks. I can't promise anything more, but I am going to try to at least do that. So if you would like, please, even first of all, there's a lot of people that listen to the show, and we do thank you and appreciate you. Even if you don't like YouTube, because I don't, which is why the podcast
on
is
the background
on YouTube. Not even do that. You can stay listening here, but could you at least like go and subscribe? Everyone has a YouTube. Just subscribe so we can get some numbers up. You don't gotta watch it there. I don't care where you watch it, as long as you watch and listen. I do appreciate that about y'all. But you know, you can share with some friends. You can do whatever. But we're on YouTube.
Oh my gosh, we are on YouTube. I actually have to officially start putting makeup on my face now. This is thrilling. Because I look like a sewer rat today, but it's fine. A very, very beautiful sewer rat. This is the part where you're like, yes, absolutely. You don't look like a sewer, whatever. Anyway, yeah, we're on YouTube. So that's thrilling.
I think that's crazy.
I need to
If
get my
you
hair
all would
done.
like to know how much DJ is a liar about how she looks, you should check us out on YouTube. So then you can see and be like,
she does look like a sewer rat, but a very, very cute sewer rat.
oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I really do look a mess though. I literally just got off of a flight from Charlottesville, Virginia. Actually, no, Richmond. We drove to Richmond and I lost my headphones. So I did a 2-hour and 40-minute flight with no headphones.
Ghetto.
It was ghetto. I don't want to crash out about this, but like, if you are a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or a guardian of a small child that is old enough to know that screaming on a plane is wrong and you do nothing, I have beef with you. That's all I'm going to say.
Emphasis on old enough to know, because
old enough to know.
I don't like people who be mad at people for having babies. Like,
babies is different.
You're allowed to have a baby in public, but like if that baby is 4, come on.
And
like,
the child was at least 4. I'm not gonna lie to you. The child was standing up, fully in the seat, messing with the air vents and the lights. And then if the mother, grandmother, whoever said something to him that he didn't like, it was like full blown scream. Like, not, you know how like the toddlers, they do the putting on and they kind of like fake cry and like do whatever. Yeah, he took it to like another level. And at one point, like, he just kept escalating. And the mother, sister, aunt, whoever was just like sitting there as the child was screaming. And I ain't got no headphones.
Crazy.
I am exhausted. But anyway, welcome to Power 2 Podcast, where we talk about the power of friendship and
only
the power of upsets. Friendship. What?
And only the power of friendships.
Only the power of friendship. And the power of firing coaches. So the news for the last 3 weeks in a row has been who has been unceremoniously bounced up out of their jobs. And this week we have quite the list.
To be fair, this is not this week. This is a comprehensive list because we've been doing it like in like smatterings, if that's the right thing.
Yes.
And we are not actually like tracking this. And so
yes.
I found a list that had them. So we may mention ones that we've already mentioned, but as of today, November 24th, this is everyone who has been fired.
Wow. So yeah. So in the American, the coaches for Charlotte, East Carolina, Florida Atlantic, Rice, Temple, and Tulsa have all been fired. And we talked about the Temple firing last week, I believe.
Half the conference.
That's
Not
pretty much
exactly
everybody.
half, but it's basically half. Like
Pretty much
everybody's in the
everyone.
league.
The Americans said we're burning it down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, sounds right.
I mean, you may as well. I mean, America
It's the
is
truth.
actually burning down currently. Never mind.
You know, see you picking up what you got me. The the CUSA, Kennesaw State coach. So this
The
one was interesting.
CUSA,
We didn't talk about this.
no. We are not the CUSA.
That's what it's called.
When did we start calling Conference USA the CUSA?
That's what everyone calls it.
Okay, continue.
Who said Conference USA? It's CUSA. That's what it's called.
I mean, go ahead.
All right. So here's the thing. We did not talk about this. We won't stay on it long. Kennesaw State, if you all do or do not know, is a FCS. For those who don't know, that is the lower level of Division One. Their playoffs are about to start. They have like a 64 team playoff. So for all the people complaining about the FBS playoff, shut up. Because the FCS playoff is amazing and they have like 64 teams. Maybe it's 30. It's a lot. Whatever it is, it's a lot.
I can't keep up with that.
Anyways, they came up to another level. Their coach led them to multiple championships rings, just like very good seasons at FCS. They decided to jump up for the money. They had a bad year. They fired him and then said he retired. And he said, "No, y'all fired me." So it's been messy. But ultimately, you can't. He didn't ask. I mean, maybe he wanted to, maybe more money or whatever. But in general, he didn't ask to go up a level and face much harder competition when he was succeeding at the level that he's at. And he's the only coach that's been successful there. And then they fired him because he wasn't instantly good at the next level. So
I don't like that logic.
I don't like it at all. And they tried to say that he retired, and he said, "Nah, I'm not letting you do that."
And that's ghetto.
You fired me. Don't play around.
That's like the firing versus parted ways language. Like, we know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
And a lot of times it's mutual, but they tried to make it seem like it was mutual or it's his decision, and he was not letting that rock. And then he the next game, because he's been fired for a couple of weeks, he was at the game and like all the players and people were like talking to him and stuff, because like it seems like everyone in the program loved him. They just fired him. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's ghetto.
Well,
not the singing. Anyways, in the MAC, Ball State, UMass, I don't even know
Central
who that
Michigan.
is. Central Michigan.
Michigan is interesting because their coach actually did retire. But it's partially a departed ways retiring, in that he was probably going to get fired because he's still under investigation for the Connor Stallions thing, because Connor Stallions was on the sideline of a Central Michigan game, clearly scouting one of Michigan's opponent. Maybe it was Penn State. I don't remember who it was, but Central Michigan was playing a Big Ten team. Connor Stallions was on the sidelines of said game. He then got caught for the whole scheme that most of you are already aware of. And then video came out and they said, that is Connor Stallions on the sideline in Central Michigan coaching gear. And at least multiple, I don't remember the exact number because this is old now, but multiple coaches on that staff used to coach at Michigan. So this was one of those, like, you're getting up there in age. This is, NCAA is going to eventually come down with this investigation. Why don't we just let you retire in peace, sort of thing?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Mountain West schools in Michigan just love cheating like that. I see.
For real.
That's a trend. In the Mountain West, Fresno State and Utah State.
Yes. And then in the Sun Belt, Southern Miss. So as we talked about before, and as you can tell, these are all G5 jobs. No one in the Power 5 has been fired yet. Florida came out in support of their coach, and I get it seems like maybe a good idea after what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Baylor came out in support of their coach, Dave Aranda. Again, we don't have to talk about it a lot because we've already talked about it, but essentially between NIL, the payments to players, certain conferences, like specifically the Big Ten, all having a lot of coaches under 3 years. And then some on the other side, coaches like say a Lincoln Riley, who people may not be happy with or whatever, got 10-year contracts coming off the pandemic. So a lot of people just either can't afford to fire coaches, or the coaches are still new. I think there's going to be a crap ton of coach firings next year. But a lot of people are kind of just like in wait and see mode. I mean, this is the first year of the 12-team playoff. This is the first year that National Signing Day has been moved up because of the 12-team playoff and some of
12-year
the
playoff.
and some of the timing issues with like the December calendar. So as discussed, a lot of Power 5 jobs aren't going to change. And we're seeing that because if they were, not that no one would get fired, but if they were, we would have already seen some. So it'll be very interesting I guess sort of interesting way. I don't know if very interesting is the right word. It'll be interesting to see how these jobs get filled because
Yeah.
typically like a lot like so for and this it really affected the MAC for a long time, right? These coordinators wanted these jobs because that's how you got a head coaching job. Now these head coaches, not all of them, but you're starting to see it more and more, are leaving these jobs to become coordinators at the Power 5 level because it's easier to get a head coaching job. That's what happened with Sean Lewis. He left Kent State. So sad because Kent's awful now. Went to Colorado for 1 year and then got the San Diego State job. He's the same coach, but no one wanted to hire him from Kent State. And there's been a couple other ones that's done that. There's rumors that like Toledo's Jason Candle may be the next guy to do it because he's been good at Toledo and no one's hired him. So I don't know who's going to take. Obviously, someone's going to take them. But I don't know who's going to take them because doing these lower level jobs just isn't as appealing as it once was. And so I think there's going to be some. I think some of the people who are interested in head coaching jobs are going to be more patient. And then on top of that, with the no coaches getting fired, a bunch of Power 5 level jobs are going to fire their coordinators. So like the coordinators who may take these jobs may just, go to Florida, go to Baylor, go to Wisconsin, like go to these places because a bunch of people are going to be looking for coordinators. So if you care about the G5 or the G6, G5.5,
G5.5 is craziness.
It's going to be interesting to see kind of if there's if a name, like someone we know, someone that's a riser or something takes any of these jobs.
Well, the coaching carousel begins. Ashton Jeanty finally hit 2,000 yards.
What took him so long?
11 games, dude, like run faster. Run more. Like
11 games, like I could have did that.
Like what? I got 2,000 yards in 6 games. Like catch up. No, I'm just kidding. That is quite the accomplishment, obviously. And of course they've been talking about this whole season, but it's just making his Heisman contention just that much more imminent. But Travis Hunter still has something to say about that. We don't have time to talk about that because we have so many games to recap. But shout out to Ashton. Okay.
It's a hard name to say. It's like it's not like
Jeanty.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue.
It does not roll off the tongue, but whatever. We all know it. So
yeah. It's not like it, but it's the way the tongue works. It just doesn't roll off the tongue well.
I meant it more of like no matter how you say his name, we know his name because he's.
Well, I disagree with that. You need to say his name right. That is one of my biggest. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying, like in general.
Yes.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when people won't learn people's names. So it does matter how.
I agree. Yes.
While you're saying it right, it just doesn't roll off the tongue well. Ashton.
Ashton Jeanty. Yes. Anyways, shout out to him.
Speaking of Mr. Jeanty, he gets to keep his locks because he bet his offensive line that if he didn't rush for 2,000 yards this season, he'd cut his hair. So
that's iconic. I love that.
He does not have to cut his hair.
I love that. Honestly, though, he could probably do with a haircut. Everybody's face isn't made for locks. That's not the point. The boy is running 2,000 yards in a season. It doesn't matter whether his hair is locked or not. Anyway, I'm just saying.
So with that, we're going to take a quick break. because we have a lot of games to talk about. And when we get into these games, boy, I'm gonna forget to take a break. So we will be right back after the ads. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Land Grant Podcast Network's Power to Podcast. We're here.
Where we discuss the power of not one, not two, not three, but a whopping 7 top 20 teams getting upset this week.
Wow.
What a
Love
chaotic week it has been.
Whoa. One
What?
of those is not an upset. Because one of those
One of
includes
them?
Ohio State, Indiana. So that's not an upset.
Really, I was more so
Or were
saying
there
that
7
ranked
upsets?
teams lost is really what I was
Okay.
getting at.
But
Yeah.
but the reason why I say that is most of them were upsets. Like most
Yeah,
of
that's
them
what I
were
was like.
unranked
Most of them
teams,
were.
but like, you know, Ohio State, Indiana was an upset. And speaking of Ohio State, Indiana, let's just get into this very quickly. Ohio State destroyed Indiana, as they should have, but you
Destroyed
never
is
know
the word,
with
yes.
Ryan Day, with the Ryan Day team. I think that I don't feel the need to continue to make my passionate pleas for Indiana because the SEC lost, and so we don't need to do that. We're going to talk about the SEC briefly, but I will still say they should still be in the playoffs. I think it's disingenuous to say anything else. We came into this season saying that Ohio State was the favorite to win the national championship. We now
Yes.
believe that Oregon may be the favorite to win the national championship. Ohio
Yes.
State lost to Oregon by 1 point. There is not a complete and dominant team, but the two closest are Ohio State and Oregon at this point. 11 games in,
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. What I don't think is fair to say, and what I think people may be trying to say, is that Indiana wouldn't be able to beat an Ole Miss, or that they wouldn't be able to beat a Georgia. I wouldn't pick them against Georgia. I would probably pick them against Ole Miss, or that they wouldn't be able to beat
I agree.
a Tennessee. I would definitely pick them against Tennessee because Tennessee
They're beating Tennessee. I'm not entertaining that.
So they should still be in the playoffs. This is like losing this way to Ohio State is not indicative of Indiana's season.
This is what's supposed to happen, technically.
Yeah, and Ohio State finally is putting it together. They played the game that they're supposed to play. And I would just like to say that I was right. I do come on here and say that, but I just think it's so. And I'm going to save this for Dante because I love to tell Dante I'm right because Dante loves to tell me that I'm wrong. But
that is y'all's dynamic.
the conversation around should Indiana be worried about how they played against Michigan, the answer was yes. Because the biggest concern in the Michigan game was that Indiana's offensive line could not block stunts and twist. If you don't know what stunts and twist are, and I'm side note, I'm going to try to explain things a little bit more than I typically do because I've been trying to broadcast this podcast, and most of my friends are women, and not everyone knows football. And I feel like sometimes we use a lot of things. And like one of my friends specifically was like, "Can you explain football to women?" And I was like, "So I want to explain things a little bit."
Or to people who don't know football, which don't always include women, because there are people who have other genitals that also don't understand football. But I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying because my best friend. Also, we don't, but I'm just saying, my best friend also listens to the show, and she is such a beautiful soul. She knows nothing about sports. So watching sports through her eyes is always just so funny because she just does not have a Scooby of what is going on. And it is so funny. I think like we were watching a Cowboys game and something happened and she was like, "Oh, that's a penalty. That's good, right?" And I was like, "No, girl. No." She was like, "Wait, what? I don't get it." It's just so cute. But she also requested that we explain things more fully. So,
So stunts and twist are essentially instead of like playing me versus you, it is we are going to do something to confuse the offensive line. So a lot of times they send people in different directions. One of the best ones, and this one's going to be hard to explain, is like essentially one person is the crash dummy and his job is to just run someone over like from the side so that someone else can loop behind and get a free rush to the quarterback. So essentially,
Mhm.
this one person is no longer trying to rush the quarterback. They're essentially trying to take out one or two people so
Mhm.
someone else can do that. Not, and this is not a common thing because it's really hard to learn. And if you don't do it right, you just allow for a lot of mistakes. Like, I mean, there's just a lot of things that can go wrong when you do stunts and twists. So it's not super common. And so when you have teams that do them well, there are teams who can't block that. And then when you add in creative blitzes, and of course, blitzing is when you send someone who is not on the line, someone who's not supposed to be going after the passer, you send them to rush the passer.
Yeah.
When you send these things, it's confusing to the offensive line. That's why you do it. If you confuse them, you get to hit the quarterback. And Indiana was very bad at that against Michigan, even though they won. And so I'm like, I wonder if this is should be a concern against Ohio State, because Ohio State's going to see that film and say, we're just as talented as Michigan, maybe more. We can also
More.
do this. We also blitz more than them. We're going to kill this guy. And that's what they did. I mean, they 5 sacks. They were in his face the whole time. One of our linebackers had 3 sacks by himself, just
Period.
blitzing because they couldn't stop. They couldn't pick up the blitz. They were confused. The quarterback was seeing ghosts. He, even when there was no one in his face, he thought there was someone in his face. And so, but the thing is, how many teams have Ohio State and Michigan's defensive line? Clearly not the other 11 teams that they've played, right? There are other teams in the playoffs. Like, if Indiana in the playoffs, their biggest concerns are going to be if they have to play Ohio State again, if they have
Yeah.
to play Oregon, Georgia if they make it, and I think that's it.
That's
Maybe
pretty much
Tennessee, but like Tennessee's line is maybe a little overrated. I would be worried about Ole Miss's, but Ole Miss isn't going to make it anymore. So it's just like those are like if they played Notre Dame, they'd be fine. If they played Boise, they'd be fine. If they played BYU, they'd be fine. If they played SMU, I'm not saying they'd beat SMU, but as far as like the defensive line concerned,
that's
they'd be fine.
competitive.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of teams that Miami, they'd be fine. Like, there's a lot of teams that they can play against. We don't need to do this thing that because they got beat by Ohio State, that they didn't. So whatever.
I'm leaving it at there is a 2-loss maximum for the playoffs. I'm not talking about no teams that have lost 3 games.
Yeah, and
Who should be
honestly,
in over Indiana? That's some
yeah,
bullshit. I'm not doing it. That's a joke to me. Like, Indiana, they got their first loss of the season on their 11th game, and it was to the number 2 team in the country.
yeah.
What are we
Um,
talking about? What are we
yeah,
talking about?
and I don't honestly, I don't think we need to talk about it anymore because, and we'll transition to this very soon. The SEC lost 3 games. I literally last week I was like, this isn't going to matter because at least one of these teams is going to lose. I said this on this podcast. I didn't think 3 of them were going to lose, but
I
this
know,
isn't
me
going to matter
neither.
because at least one of them is going to lose. But it is still a thing that's important to say. We do not need to disrespect Indiana. They deserve to be in the 12-team playoff.
Period.
Another team
Next
that is
caller.
going to be in the 12-team playoff, Penn State. I don't know if we talked about this on this podcast or not, but I have been iffy on Penn State all year. But again, and I say this, I like to say this, and sometimes I have to say it because some people forget or new people listen to the show. I tend to judge teams on their expectations. So like Penn State and Indiana are 11-1, but those are 2 different seasons for me because Penn State came in expecting to be a national championship contender, and they've
Yeah.
said for the last 2 years that this was the year they finally beat Ohio State because they have their quarterback and they have these things, whereas Indiana was supposed. I
They're
think
just happy to be here.
win 3 games. So it's like,
Yeah.
but regardless, Penn State keeps winning. I think that this win was one of their more. It ended in a more impressive way than most of their games end because they beat Minnesota 26-25. Minnesota kicked the field goal down 4 instead of going for which is I will not touch on that today. We'll be here for 3 hours instead of the 2.5 we're going to be here with all these
That we're
games
probably going to be here
anyway.
anyway. I
But it
know.
was fourth down. They were in the red zone. It's like 6 minutes left, and they essentially, and I get it, 6 minutes, we have our timeouts. They played to say, oh, our defense is going to get the stop. We're going to get the ball back. Then we're only down 1. We can kick a field goal. Field goal's worth 3 points. We'll win. The problem is they didn't get the ball back. And you should almost always assume you're not going to get the ball back. And the problem that I have with this, like, I do understand it's easier to get in the field goal range than to get a touchdown. But you're down 4.
Yes.
So if you go for it on fourth down, if you get it, you're getting a touchdown to win the game. If you don't get it, you're still down 4. You still need a touchdown. If you believe your defense can get a stop, why would
you just
you
not
still
go
think they
for
get
the
a stop?
Do you want to win?
See, and a lot of these coaches don't want to win, so they kick a field goal.
Yeah.
That's worth a 1-point game, and then they just don't get the ball back. And so, Penn State is a good, not great team, but the one thing that they did that I was impressed with, because this is kind of not what their coach always does, is they were very aggressive. It was like a 4th, and they converted 3 4th downs on this drive. Literally, they got the ball with 6 minutes. Didn't give the ball back, converted 3 4th downs, one of them being a fake punt from their own 34-yard line.
I love a fake punt. Oh my goodness.
A fake punt from your own 34-yard line is super aggressive. They got 30 yards on the fake punt.
I'm obsessed.
So not a great game, but they ended it in a way that is more impressive. And I do think the other Penn State teams lose this game. So, you still want to give them credit. They're still going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a matchup for someone. But I do wonder. I was going to say, in my head, I was thinking matchup nightmare, but I don't believe that. So then I don't either. Someone. I still believe Penn State hosts a first-round playoff game and loses. But they're going to make the playoff, and that is what matters. How you feel about them making the playoff is an off-season conversation.
I don't care. Love that for them.
Yeah, but you're not. I mean, I don't care either, technically. But you're
not. Oh, I know. I was just saying that was my opinion. Was that I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah, Penn State is not making me know. Never mind at the moment. So, it's a team we've been talking about this since the beginning. It's the team that we did have fairly high expectations for. Even when we were doing the preview, we were like, Penn State is going to be in the conversation, and they are. So, know. The SEC is trash.
Chef's kiss.
The SEC is trash. And this is something that you spoke about pretty extensively last week, just about the SEC bias and the dominance that is not really dominance, and just the complete and utter just disingenuousness that is now just permeating this freaking season. And the proof is in the pudding, especially after this week. Florida upset Ole Miss. OU smacked Bama. Smacked them. Like, was Bama even there? They had Jalen Milroe throwing the most interceptions he's thrown in a game, I think, up until this point. Like, just horrible. Now, I will say, in that particular game, I don't know if it's because it was later in the day, the refs were just on one. Okay, they stole a touchdown from Bama. I will say that. They absolutely stole a touchdown from Bama because they were making phantom calls that didn't make no sense. But still,
it wouldn't have mattered to the outcome of the game.
It wouldn't have mattered to the outcome of the game, but I hate, you know how I feel about refs when they get to throwing too much laundry out there. It's making me mad. And then I just want to touch on those two because I know Auburn and A&M might be a little bit more of an extended conversation, but just those two. I'm tired of this conversation. I'm tired of this conversation about Bama. I don't know how Bama is still even part of the playoff conversation at this point. They have lost 3 times.
I don't think they are anymore.
I had seen some projections where they were still putting them in there.
It's not going to happen.
And I'm just like,
people don't have no self-respect. Anyone who's
this is a disingenuous conversation.
Still getting in, it doesn't have any self-respect. And
this is a disingenuous conversation. It just is. It just is. It is absolute bullshit. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. They've lost 3 times. Ole Miss has lost 3 times. I don't want to hear it. Or 4 times. Is it third?
3 for both of them. Yeah. I did think it was funny that somebody was like, okay, but like, and here's the thing, right? So they know that they couldn't make the argument about the top of the Big Ten anymore. So they went to like the ACC, they went to SMU, they went to Miami, they went to like Wisconsin or whatever. They were like, but if you gave them Alabama's schedule, what do you think their record would be? And the problem
better than Bama's.
The problem that I have with that is like, you act like Bama played. You act like they're acting like these teams had Ohio State schedule, and I say that because Ohio State played 3 top 5 teams. They're 2-1.
Yes,
you're acting like Bama has 3 losses, but it's because they played Texas, they played Georgia, and they played in Texas.
Ohio State,
who Texas A&M was supposed to be, or something like that. They lost to Vanderbilt, if I remember correctly, right?
Vanderbilt,
to OU, who literally has no offense. Their quarterback threw for like 80 yards and ran for 100. They essentially turned their quarterback into a running back in this game. You hired the offensive coach, the guy who had 2 first-round wide receivers and turned Michael Penix into a first-round pick, and you hired him to help your offense. Everyone said that Jalen Milroe was going to be fixed, and he was awful. He was horrid. He had one of the worst games. He literally isn't. He's not a good quarterback, and so it's just like.
No shade to the kid. He's a good athlete. He's just not a good quarterback.
You scored 3 points.
3
in a college football game. It is the lowest points you scored since like 2011.
And they also lost to Tennessee, correct? I believe they lost to Tennessee. I think that was the only ranked team that they lost to.
No, they lost to Georgia. Or they beat Georgia.
No, they lost to Tennessee. Because that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so they lost to Tennessee, Vanderbilt.
And Vanderbilt, and now OU.
Yeah, it's hard to remember because they all have so many losses. I'm sorry, I can't keep track of your 5 3-loss teams.
I'm so sorry. They should all be at home eating their Wheaties, learning some lessons, not in playoff conversations. I don't want to hear it. But also, I would like to point out that neither should the teams that beat them. They should also not be in the playoff conversation either.
I mean, they're not. They're not because they got beat by 5-5 teams.
Like, I'm just
those teams are just lucky to get to a bowl game. I did think one thing that was kind of funny is, and I hate when national media say things that I think are kind of funny because they're all awful. But a lot of people thought that Lane Kiffin, who is Ole Miss's head coach, was going to be the coach that replaced Billy Napier, who's Florida's head coach, who we already talked about is not getting fired. Yeah, and then Florida beats Lane Kiffin. And I just like that was just like a little funny, like we
love irony.
You went into that game, was like, oh, you thought you were gonna have my job.
We love the irony of it all.
This job?
Irony.
This job?
Okay. He said, I'm keeping my spot, fam. I'm keeping my spot.
Yeah, I think this game was crazy because Florida is up 24-17. They get the ball with like a minute or something left or whatever. So they don't run out the clock. Again, we just said Penn State had the ball for 6 minutes. Florida punched the ball back. Ole Miss has the ball. Jackson Dart, who is a mediocre quarterback, but a lot of people like Jackson Dart, throws an interception, and it's literally like he threw in a triple coverage. He was doing too much. He was pressing. Interception. Florida has the ball now with like a minute 30 left. They punt again. They can't even keep a minute and 30. They tried everything that they could to lose this game.
They were trying to hand the game back to Ole Miss.
No, I swear. But Jackson Dart wouldn't let him. He's such a nice guy. Jackson Dart throws the interception. That interception gets called off. I don't remember why. It was offsides or pass interference.
Holding or something. Yeah.
Some sort of defensive penalty. So he's tripping or maybe the guy didn't catch it. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they get the ball back. There's like some sort of flag. Jackson Dart's on the sideline throwing his helmet, all this sort of stuff. So he comes back for a third chance, his second time on this drive because the interception gets waved off. And drum roll, folks, throws an interception. and this time, so
the drum roll is so head ass. Oh my goodness.
And 3 chances to tie this game. He threw 3 interceptions.
The drum roll is head assery that I cannot believe I've just witnessed in person. Well, through a video. That is crazy.
2 of them counted, but he threw. They was on different sidelines. He threw one to the left. He threw one in the middle. He threw one to the right. He was handing out interceptions. It's holiday season. He was handing out turkeys.
You get an interception. You get an interception.
So. I don't really care about Florida, but shout out to Florida. It's hard to have empathy or especially to have sympathy for millionaire coaches who are going to get fired and just get paid $40 million not to work. Like, oh my God, it's so
Oh my
sad.
God, how dare they? Yeah.
But it is still hard, I imagine, to be fired. And so it's nice that, I'm sure it's nice that Billy Napier, for his family, that they, didn't get fired. It looks like they have their quarterback of the future in DJ Lagway. And so we'll see what they do. And
Next year.
hopefully, we'll see what they do next year. Maybe, hopefully they get some momentum. If they can win their next game against Florida State, which they should, I think that puts them at 7-5, which is a
I don't know
solid season.
Yeah.
This win put them at bowl eligibility, so that put them at 7-5.
Oh,
They
okay.
should beat Florida State, and then they will, go. Hopefully, if they win a bowl game, they're 8-5. That's a solid season for how they started, and then they hit the transfer portal and see if they can build a real roster now that they know who their quarterback is.
Cute.
Side note: Graham Mertz, never the guy. I'm sorry, if Wisconsin says you can't play here, I think he's probably bad. Like if you're not good enough for Wisconsin, and this is why it's hard to feel sympathy, because this dude was like, oh, Wisconsin, the team who's never had a good quarterback, doesn't think you're good enough anymore. Yeah, sure, come here. You can play for us.
Can't deal.
Yeah.
Some people think that they are miracle workers and that they can take, a diamond. They found a diamond in the rough, maybe. I don't know.
Turn it around.
Not the Negro spirituals. Anyways, Auburn.
I just have one last thing. Bama scored 3 points.
3. 1, 2, 3.
That's
this many.
Crazy.
This many. Technically 9, but really 3.
And there's listen, I'm telling you right now, Auburn, Bama might lose that game. Actually, hold on. Let me make sure that's the game next week.
Is that next week? I don't think it is.
I'm like, not. So here's the thing. It should be, but the SEC is not always like the Big Ten, where it puts its rivalry games the last week of the season. But I'm pretty sure that is always.
No, it is next week.
Yeah. Okay. So that's their in-state rival. That they play that game the last week of the season every year. So because last year Auburn almost beat them, and then they played Drop 8, which is the stupidest coverage in the entire world. I hate explaining Drop 8.
You've explained Drop 8 before. You've explained it before.
Perfect. Drop 8 is stupid. They ran Drop 8, and then Jalen Milroe ran around for 30 seconds and then threw a touchdown at the end, and they won that game. And then Bama wins the SEC, and then they make the playoffs. And we could have gotten Bama out the playoff if Auburn wouldn't have allowed a touchdown with literally 0 seconds left on the clock. So,
gotta love it.
Auburn,
but what Auburn didn't do this time.
They have some momentum, and I think they're going to feel bad about what they did. So Auburn.
I don't know are you saying Auburn has momentum?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would count this as momentum.
This is a big win.
It took them 4 overtimes.
Yeah,
it took them 4 overtimes.
Yeah, but they're not a good team.
A&M.
Also, hold on. Let me flip this for you. In my opinion, winning this game in 4 overtimes is very impressive. It's almost the most impressive thing, because we talk about this all the time in sports. When you are the lesser talented team, when you make mistakes, eventually, like, oh, it looks like you have them on the ropes, and then eventually you just get out talented and you can't throw any more punches. Like, it happens every year. I mean, like, it literally happens every year. There's always Nebraska, Ohio State, right? Nebraska looked like they were going to beat Ohio State, and then Ohio State figured it out in the end because Nebraska didn't capitalize. So every year there's always one of these teams that punches up, and then they just can't hold on. And so for Auburn to get out to that 21-0 lead, have that lead wiped out, and still fight, and then you give Texas A&M, who is supposedly the better team with the better players, you give them all of these chances in the third quarter, chance in the fourth quarter, 1, 2, 3, 4 overtimes, and then you still win that game. That's very impressive, because typically the talent wins out. Typically, and I'm not pro Auburn, but I'm just saying it's more impressive than you're making it seem. Typically, the talent wins out. And so going toe-to-toe for 4 overtimes is impressive, in my opinion.
I'm not saying it's not impressive. I'm more so just saying, like, they I wouldn't call it momentum because of how hard they had to fight, but that doesn't make it not like impressive. Like I don't think
It's
I don't
momentum
I would
because it's
hate for Auburn to
positive.
walk away from this and be like, "Okay, now we can go beat insert great team here." Because like,
But
no.
imagine if they lost that game. Then they're not gonna have it because they were up 21-0. So if they
Yeah,
lose that game, now they're down on themselves, and now they gotta go play Bama, who's also down on themselves. This is momentum. I'm not saying he's gonna carry, but this is positive momentum going into that game to show resilience, to win against a top team, a team that is still one game away from the SEC, the SEC championship.
which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Um, I mean, I was impressed. Like, I don't think
I
I've seen a quadruple overtime in football before. So
You haven't seen one now.
I
These
hadn't
overtimes
seen.
suck.
Oh, the walking back and forth for the 2-point conversions,
Stupid.
waste of my life.
This is
Wait, minutes of my life I'm never getting back.
These are literally the worst overtime rules, and I can't believe that they
I
changed them.
I hate it. And I heard that it's because of the last time or similar, not because of, but it was due to, in part to another game that went to overtime that also had A&M in it. It was some years ago.
LSU
Like,
A&M.
yeah, and they went to like 7 overtimes or
Yeah.
whatever. And so the rules
And
got changed after
everyone
that.
who watched it loved it, except the TV companies. It's literally changed because of TV companies, because
Broadcasting rights and
went
stuff.
on. They felt like the game went on too long, and it messed up the other games. And they tried to complain. And I can tell you, anyone who watched that game, myself included, anyone who was at that game, not myself, but who was at that game, everyone loved it. And then they went and changed it, and then they just made them bad. Like they're just straight up bad.
The
And
2-point conversion thing is so weird. It's
like, this is not soccer. They kept saying it on the broadcast, because I bet you this is what they mirrored it after. This is not soccer.
I hate it. And also on the broadcast, they said something that just got on my nerves, and I'm not going to stay on here for long, but it just got on my damn nerves because they were like, "Oh, when you start playing like too many overtimes, like you have to start worrying about the wear and tear on your players, and
So win the
we've been
game.
out here for 4 hours, and this
So
is
win the
this and
game.
this." They're athletes. That too, but like they're athletes. Like this is what they're built for. Like especially when the majority of these people, if you're playing at an A&M, if you're playing at an Auburn, you have NFL aspirations. Otherwise, you would be playing at some
The
random
NFL
other
season is
school.
17 games.
Huh?
The NFL season is 17 games.
The NFL season is 17 games. You're playing against people that are bigger than you. You're playing against people that are faster than you, and you're playing against people that have been playing longer than you. So let them play for over 4 hours. It's fine. This is conditioning. This is good for them. This is good for them to understand that, hey, it's any given Saturday, and your game can either be the regulation 4 quarters, or it may go to however many overtimes it takes to win. I don't understand the whole, this is going to have wear and tear on the body. They're getting wear and tear anyway. They're playing football. Like, what? Anyway, it was very
That's
interesting
the
to
lie
watch.
they told, because the TV companies were mad.
Because they're just mad that they're still there. Exactly. I know. They're just mad that they're still there because it was the last game of the day, I think, or close to. I mean, they still had USC, UCLA after that, but like, you'll be fine.
Yeah. So all 3 of those teams, Ole Miss, Bama, and A&M, were 2-loss teams. All 3 of them were in that group of SEC teams that they were pandering and crying
Not
and
pandering.
complaining and all of these things to get all of them into the 12-team playoff. And as I said last week, the SEC schedule was a circular ball of shit that was literally just propping each other up. And now we don't have to worry about it. Because now, instead of 5 potential, they're not even going to get 4. Like, my line of thinking was that it's going to be 4. It's going to be 4 SEC. It's going to be 4 Big Ten. They're not even going to get 4. They're going to get 3, because all these teams lost. And then for other teams to get in, you still have to expect chalk, right?
Yeah.
And it hasn't been chalk. Do you telling me that there's no chance that Vanderbilt beats Tennessee? Tennessee's one of their 3 right now. If Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, they're cut. A&M has 3 losses. If A&M beats Texas may be out. What happens then if A&M goes to the championship game but then loses to Georgia? That's 4 losses. Do they get in? So like, the SEC is on the ropes. They look like Mike Tyson against old boy, and that was racist. So
Oh my God. I'm not even dignifying that.
The SEC is ass out right now.
And honestly, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Give me more of it.
So
I want to inject it into my veins because one thing that I've never been the biggest fan of when it came to college football, which is why I've stayed pretty distant from it, is the SEC bias. It is quite obnoxious. So to me, to see all of these SEC teams failing concurrently, it really just warms my evil soul. It really does.
yeah, and the
Because
thing is,
we need to start having honest conversations.
yeah, like next year, the 5 best teams in the sport could be in the SEC. And if it is, I will come on this podcast and I will say the Big Ten shouldn't get 4 teams in because they're not good this year. Or
Yep.
like you have to be able to acknowledge what's happening. You have a job. You get a yearly review. I can't go to my job and be like, yeah, I'm shit this year, but remember last year? I was
Like,
the model
what?
employee last year, so you should just let me not do what I'm supposed to do, right? Like it just doesn't work that way.
Yes, literally.
Like the history of the SEC doesn't matter for
Nobody
this
cares.
individual season. And if we're talking about the history of the SEC, if you remember correctly, the SEC didn't win the national championship last year. The SEC had to wait until the last week to get in. It was the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in the championship game last year. So now we're on a 2-year trend of the SEC not being the best conference. And sure, the SEC has 15 years. It doesn't matter. If we're talking history, you can create a history podcast and you can talk and gloat about all of the SEC things. But when we're talking about the playoffs that start in 3 weeks, we have to talk about the season that's happening now and not 2006. Nick Saban's not there no more. And I've said forever that the SEC was not the most dominant conference in football. It had Nick Saban.
Bama was just the most dominant team.
Like all of these championships that we talk about for the SEC, 6 or 7 of them are Saban's because he has one at LSU and then $1 million at Bama. And so like he's not there anymore. And the other thing is like, I get it's hard. It's hard to understand change. But with the change in conferences, NIL, roster, like these things, right? Like it's not so much change that Ohio State and Georgia and these teams aren't going to expect to win the national championship. But it's enough change that other teams like Indiana can happen, right?
They can have a chance. Yeah.
Season can happen. Miami can literally rise out the fucking grave it's been in for 20 years. Miami hasn't been good since 1999 or 2000. Miami literally has a run of almost everyone who touched the field being in the Hall of Fame. Ed Reed, Sean Taylor, I think Ray Lewis was there from Miami. Maybe I may be wrong.
Michael Irvin,
Reggie Wayne, like all these people, and they've just been on their deathbed for 20 years. Now they're back. Like the sport has changed dramatically. So you can't even say like it's not like it was even 5 years ago, where it was literally all of the talent was in the SEC and at Ohio State, and nobody else had talent. It's more spread out. So it's just,
which isn't that the goal?
It should.
Isn't that the goal?
But that's, and I don't want to get stuck on the Indiana thing, so we can move on. But a lot of Indiana fans have been weird, but like they've been weird because they were mad that Ohio State scored a last-minute touchdown when Indiana's been doing that all season. Regardless, a lot of them. Where one of the things that they've been saying that was right is like it was cute. Like Indiana was the cute, fun story for 10 weeks, and then we became a threat to make the playoffs, and now everyone hates us in our resume. Like Indiana's story was so great, and you loved Kirk Cignetti, and you loved his confidence and his
his bravado
and his
swagger
and the things that he said in the media, his quotes. You loved all of it until it got down to realizing, like, damn, we may suck. Indiana's bad. Look at the schedule. What would Indiana do in the SEC? I think Indiana would beat Vanderbilt. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about? Think they'd beat Florida?
Speaking of what we're talking about, oh my gosh, we've been on that for a while. Okay, so Nebraska ran all over Wisconsin. Duh.
Yeah.
That happened.
You can't say duh. Nebraska, you got to remember, Nebraska was 0-9 in games to make it to a bowl game.
Yes, but I think I'm a firm believer in like they probably walked away from that like, bro, we got to stop doing this shit. Like, we just got to stop doing this shit.
I think I said it I think I predicted it last week against USC, maybe on the other podcast, and I was wrong. I was like, I think Nebraska is just going to come out and roll someone. I thought they were going to roll USC because like they want this bowl game and they don't want this to hang on anymore. And it wasn't USC. I was wrong, but it was Wisconsin.
It was Wisconsin.
So yeah, shout out to Nebraska. They're in a bowl game for the first time since
2016, I think.
Yeah, 2016. And I don't know how long he's going to be there, but they have their offensive coordinator of the future, Dana Holgorsen. For those of you who don't know, Dana Holgorsen was a successful coach at West Virginia. He then went to Houston. He never should have went to Houston. He does not have a personality that works in Texas. And he had some things, and it wasn't as successful. He got fired, but he's one of the cutting edge kind of offensive guys. He literally was in Nebraska for a week, and they demoted as an analyst, and they demoted the offensive coordinator, made him the offensive coordinator. And so if they're smart, and I think they are, they're just going to hire him to be their full-time offensive coordinator because he's on
he's interim right now.
Yeah, because he wasn't even on the team until 3 weeks ago. Like he wasn't a part of the staff. When they realized like they kept losing these games, they were on a 4-game losing streak. The coach called him up and was like, "Hey, can you come help us out? Can you look at the program and see what's going on?" And everyone liked him. So after a week, they went into the bye week. They made him the offensive coordinator. He's now been the acting offensive coordinator for 2 weeks. But again, he's only been on campus for 3.
Period.
But he's good. And he wants to continue coaching. He wants to revitalize his career. So he'll be Nebraska's offensive coordinator for a year or two, and then he'll get another job.
Period. Love that for him. Love it for Nebraska because, Lord Jesus, they needed that. So
very happy for them. Go Big Red.
Moving swiftly along to a game that I truly thought was going to be just a little bit more evenly matched. I think I texted you that. I was like, oh man, this game is going to be so good. Oh my gosh, it's going to be this, and this. And then North Dakota. And then Notre Dame was like, no, actually, we're just going to score and then score and then score and then keep scoring and then keep scoring and make Army look like a whole bunch of scrubs. Notre Dame smacked Army 49-14.
To ass.
Absolute slaughtering, public slaughtering. In their shiny helmets with their shiny jerseys, which I particularly loved. Because what was it? It was like their Shamrock Lucky
4 Horsemen
Stars, Lucky Charm, whatever game.
I think it was their 4 Horsemen game.
Sure, Clover, whatever. I don't know. The luck of the Irish. Yeah. I hate it though because it now takes a 9-1 Army out of the playoff conversation, which I also find to be completely disingenuous, because they're 9-1. Like, how are they not in the playoff conversation anymore? Just because they lost one time, but we're talking about these other teams that are losing twice and 3 times. It just doesn't make sense. But anyway,
they're in the G5.
I get it.
That's why.
It's just ghetto.
Side note: do you be on TikTok?
Of course, I'm on TikTok. Am I in sports TikTok or?
No. Have you seen the ghetto trend?
Which one?
She's so ghetto.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay, I'm gonna send it to you. It's bothering me.
Oh, okay.
It's a trend where largely women are dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. My problem is in a song singing about someone being ghetto. I think we should be mindful of who's making videos to the sound. Personally.
Oh, I feel like I know where you're going with that.
Personally, I think that sound should be reserved. That's all. That's
for
it.
People who are and not.
Yes.
yes.
That's all.
Yes.
Anyways.
And can we just talk about how pale I am? Because not my palm being the same shade as the back of my hand.
That winter.
Wow.
Right.
I'm so pale. This is just, and I'm not half white. That's the part that's just so annoying. Is that both of my parents are black, and all of my grandparents are black, and my great grandparents are also wait for it, black. Child. Anyways, the Big 12 is a very ghetto place to be. Speaking of ghetto, the Big 12 is a very ghetto place to be. Would you like to tell us about your Big 12 compadres?
My Big 12 compadres.
Big 10. Sorry.
So
Wait a minute. OSU is in
Big
Big 10.
Big 10. So
Sorry.
Big 12,
Anyways,
a mess. I do not
hot mess.
relish that Colorado lost,
Me
but
neither.
I do agree with what I said previously that like it was their schedule was hard. Like legitimately their last 4 games were hard. They won 2 of them. Props to them. They're having a great season. But the thought that they were going to win all 4, that's tough. And then on top of that, Kansas just woke
It's
up
been
like
on a tear.
sleeping giant. If those of you who remember, Kansas was supposed to win the Big 12. And then they inexplicably went 1-5 somehow.
Yep.
And now in 3 straight games, they took a buzzsaw to the 3 ranked Big 12 teams. And every single one of them, 2 of them were undefeated. So it was like, I think, who was first? Iowa State was first. So
Iowa State
was first. And then it was like, Iowa State's undefeated. They're going to win the Big 12. They lost. And then BYU was next. It was like, BYU's undefeated. Now Iowa State's lost. They're going to win the Big 12. And then they lost. And now it's like, all right, well, nobody's undefeated. Colorado is now 2 wins away, and they're playing some of the best football. Colorado's going to win the Big 10. Lost. Belt to ass. And I want to pull it up. But if I remember correctly, I think all of them were blowouts. Maybe
no. Kansas beat BYU by 1 possession. They beat them 17-13.
Okay. So
but they did blow, and they only beat Iowa State by what is that? 2 possessions.
It was 9, but Iowa State scored late to make it closer.
Yeah,
that was not a close game. The BYU game was close, and then Colorado belt to ass. Literally,
I feel like belt to ass is real strong, but I understand what you mean. But
that is what happened. I mean,
belt to ass is
DJ. Do you want to read the stats or do I?
We don't have to read the stats.
We
don't have to read the stats, but there were also a lot of missed calls by the officials. I will say, that's all. That's all.
But you and I both know that
the officiating was booty cheeks.
It was bad. It was bad.
It was booty
bad,
cheeks.
the whole
booty cheeks
thing. But like when you have one player who has more yards by himself than the entire team.
Devin Neal.
Yeah. And out of respect for Devin Neal, I am still going to read the stats because it is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life. It's
truly beautiful to witness. It was very beautiful to witness.
I had this game on my quad box. And again, I watched 5 games at once. And with doing that, it's hard to like and so here's the thing. I will be honest, you see a lot of things, but you miss context because
you don't absorb it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so every time I look at the screen, Devin Neal was doing something crazy. And then like late in the 4th quarter, I see a thing comes up and it's like Devin Neal, 257 yards or something crazy. Colorado, 300. And I'm like, this kid has almost as many yards as
he had 167. It was 167.
No, because this was combined. They were showing.
I know what part you're talking about. They showed like Colorado had like
100, like 200 or something, and he had 167.
He had 167 because the whole game he had 207 yards.
Yeah. So he finished the game with 207 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, and 80 receiving yards and 1 touchdown for a total of 287 yards from scrimmage and 4 touchdowns.
Period. Superhuman.
Crazy.
That's all.
And he's a hometown kid. This is not the season that he thought that they were going to have when he decided to come back. And so this is great for them, great for him. They have one more game to get to bowl eligibility, which would be a huge win for them with how their season started. He's going to make someone very happy in the NFL.
Could have been the Cowboys, but we've decided not to tank anymore, and I don't even have time for that. We decided to be stupid and win today, and I'm just like, why would we do that? Why? The season is over. Let's start tanking. It is tank time, people, so we can get some good draft picks up in here because we obviously need them. But no, we wanted to beat the Commanders today. Anyways, shout out to Kansas. Shout out to Devin Neal. Love that for them. Hate it for Colorado so badly because, as you know, I've been rooting for Colorado this entire time. and now that they don't control their destiny anymore. So it's just frustrating on that end. But yeah, shout out to Kansas.
Yeah, shout out. Okay, so what's next? Fresno beat Colorado State, and this is huge for a team that we're going to talk about briefly and a team that we love to talk about. So Boise is undefeated still, right?
Boise has lost before. Boise State?
Oh, no, sorry. Boise lost to Oregon.
Sure. I really don't know who they lost to.
They lost to Oregon. So
Okay.
Boise lost to Oregon, but they've been beating essentially everybody else. And the team and a lot of the teams they were stomping. The team that gave them the most trouble is UNLV, who that was a very close game. If I can pull up their schedule, I will tell you how that game went. But
it was 29 to 24.
29-24. But the thing is, because they lost that game, UNLV was essentially out of the running for the Mountain West Conference Championship because Colorado State was also having a good game. So UNLV wins their game. They beat they beat. I didn't put on here who they beat. That's bad. Regardless, UNLV wins their game, and essentially they need help. The thing though is the Colorado State game, along with the Boise game, was the 10:30 p.m. game. So they had to wait all day to see what was going to happen. But if Fresno beat Colorado State, they would get a chance to play Boise again in the conference championship and potentially beat them this time. Well, that's what happened. Fresno State beats Colorado State 28-22. This is major because if you paid attention earlier, pop quiz time, Fresno State is one of the teams that's on this list that their coach got fired.
Oh, yeah.
Colorado State in the late night game. And now Boise is going to most likely, as long as they went out, play UNLV. And that could drastically change who gets into the playoffs.
Of course.
Because if UNLV beats Boise, it could be UNLV, but then it could be Tulane if they still think that Tulane is better than UNLV. It just throws some chaos into that last spot where many of us assumed that it was going to be Boise. And Boise has been on the downhill. They're still winning, but their games have been a lot closer. Aston Genty has had a much rougher go of it. And he's a little injured like 6 times in this game. And he kept coming back, and that's great. But that is the problem when you do run someone as much as you run him. You have the risk of running him into the ground. And just to bring this back to Ohio State, literally Ohio State, TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, 2 of the best running backs in the country, decided to pair up at Ohio State this year for this reason alone, because they didn't want to be the feature back anymore and have to take all these carries, especially when the season could potentially be 16 games and risk injury and things like that. Aston Genty in 11 games has 275 attempts. So unfortunately, he's having an amazing season, but he just doesn't have what he had earlier. He's already in an elbow brace. He's getting these big hits. He's having a hard time coming out, like getting off the ground. And I mean, it's a great year. 2,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. But it's hard. Like,
at what cost?
At what cost? He have another good game against UNLV, but potentially lose because he's not able to carry the weight that he carried last time. And
I feel like that becomes almost like a load management like situation. Like, you've already clinched your spot in Mountain West. So when y'all play this Friday, give him a couple snaps, but like, chill.
Maybe. And though let me see if I can pull this, if this is actually accurate. His worst game of the year. His worst game of the year was against UNLV. It's not his lowest output. His lowest output is against Portland State, where he rushed for 127 yards, but he did that in 11 carries and then didn't play the rest of the game. He ran the ball 31 times Sorry, where am I at? I keep losing. He
33.
ran the ball 33 times for 128 yards, which is 3.9 yards per carry. It is the only game this year he's been under 4, and most of the games this year he's been above 7. So like UNLV essentially shut him down. They needed literally everything that they could get from him for a one-score game, and now he's going to have to do that after playing 5 more games after that and racking up injuries and things like that. So we'll be on the lookout to see if Boise can finish this off and get to the playoffs. But I am concerned for Boise's sake if they get to the playoffs, because like right now, if Boise gets to the playoffs, they're supposed to play Ohio State.
Uh-huh.
And if they don't play Ohio State, they're going to play Oregon, because the 5 seed is most likely going to be whoever loses that game. They're going to get destroyed.
I mean, listen, we're talking about who's making it right now. We're not talking about who's sustaining.
But I mean,
we're talking about who's getting in.
Yeah, special season nonetheless.
Yeah, like college football matters, right? At the end of the day, they're probably getting bounced out of the first round. We know this. It's kind of the same thing with SMU. We're most likely getting bounced out of the first round, second round, whatever. But we made it.
On God.
That's what matters.
Like your talk.
You and this on God and on foe, you are so hood and so ghetto. It's just, and it's crazy because you are the most educated individual that I know personally. You have 17 masters, 42 bachelor degrees, and now you're talking about getting a doctorate, and you over here talking about some own foe. Very, very hood, very ghetto. But you know what that means, people? It means that Black people have duality. So anyway, Lord Jesus. Okay, so these conference championships. Sorry, I'm just, y'all, this flight, I'm still like thinking about how tired I was. Okay, so conference championship update. So starting with the Big Ten, obviously Oregon is in it. They were never not in it. Who's their opponent?
OSU, if OSU beats Michigan. If OSU loses to Michigan, it'll be Penn State.
In that ghetto. So OSU is beating Michigan.
Yes.
Like, I don't mean to be funny.
I will, like, if they don't, I will be in Columbus at Ryan Day's door.
Knocking on his door.
We cannot do that this year. Don't play with my emotions, Ryan. Like
that would be
good. I'm not going to say you fully in my good graces, but you starting to work your way back. I'm seeing less hatred, but it will be ramped up times 1,000,000 if you lose to Michigan. Honestly, you need to blow them out, but at bare minimum, you need to beat them by 1 point. Like, but
beat them by 1 point.
You need to blow them out. You really need to, and I think they will. I think Ohio State's too good to deal with it. Like, Michigan's a bad team. They're just straight up.
No, Michigan is cheeks. Yeah,
their best player literally basically stopped playing. People someone tried to people try to dog me on Twitter because they feel super tough with their in their mom's basement or wherever they're at behind their computer screen or their phone. And someone tried to dog me because I was like, I basically made a joke about Will Johnson, their corner, who's going to be like the 3rd pick in the draft, mailing it in because he got a minor injury and their season sucks. And I'm not going to say he was never injured, but he hasn't played in 3 games. And I can tell you right now, if Michigan was in the playoff hunt, he'd be playing.
He'd be playing, yeah.
A lot of people play injured. He doesn't want to play for this shitty ass team. And so I literally said that weeks ago, and someone tried, why would he do that? Because he's about to be a multimillionaire. He's already won a national championship, and this Michigan team sucks, and it's led by
who wants to be injured on the way into the NFL?
So dumb. He's horrible. If they were playing for stakes, he'd be playing.
I agree.
So,
anyways, Michigan, thank you so much for coming this season, but y'all are a bunch of cheaters. And Karma is a bitch, and she's a quick one. So, yes, to the SEC. Georgia is obviously has clinched their spot. So, who are they playing? They've clinched their spot, right? Did I just make that up?
Yes. Okay. You want to know what's funny about the Georgia thing? Georgia had pretty low odds of getting in, and then 3 teams lost. And so by the end of the night, it was Georgia's the only team that can get in.
Georgia, by process of elimination, Georgia.
And because everyone else lost, A&M being upset didn't even hurt them. So who's their opponent? Their opponent is the winner of the Texas A&M game. And I want to give you a moment. I know you're not like all in the Texas thing. You went to SMU, but like I want to give you the moment to talk through this. But I would just like to set the stage that Texas and Texas A&M have not played each other in 13 years.
Yes,
They
it's been a while.
bicker back and forth. They hate each other. They do all these things. The
Yeah.
A&M left for the SEC to get away from Texas, and then
Yeah.
for years did everything that they could to
Keep
block
Texas out.
Texas from getting to the SEC. And the first year that Texas is in the SEC, the first game in 13 years is for a spot in the SEC championship.
Honestly, injected into my veins. I am so excited for this, just simply because I like games of consequence, right? I like games of consequence in general. So anything that has any strong implications, I'm in there like somewhere. I don't really care. Like, it's been made clear on this podcast that I don't really root for Texas. I root for Quinn Ewers, and I'm not rooting for Texas A&M just ever in general, because Texas A&M is like SMU. They're just in College Station. I'll put it like that. So not a very big fan of the environment that is created at A&M for people who look like me. Just not a fan. So anyway, I'm always rooting for Texas in general. But the Texas and Texas A&M game was, growing up, when they were playing more consistently, has always been a big deal. You know what I mean? The energy obviously shifted towards Texas OU because we do Texas OU every year. It's Red River Showdown. We played at the Cotton Bowl, all of that stuff. But, A&M and Texas, I mean, that's as Texan as brisket. You know what I mean? Like, that is the game. So I'm excited for it. Obviously, I'm rooting for Texas because I want to see Georgia and Texas play. Again, have they played? They played already.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to see Georgia and Texas play again. I don't really want to watch Georgia roll all over Texas A&M. Like, I just don't. So rooting for Texas, but I love it. I also just love the story. I'm a sucker for a narrative. I love the whole, because that the media is going to do it. It's been 13 years since they've played. First time in the SEC together. La, 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 la. They're going to do all of that pomp and circumstance all day. So I do think it's hilarious, though, that it comes down to this for the SEC championship.
I mean, like, you literally couldn't write a better script.
You couldn't write it better. No, yeah, true.
Texas versus Texas A&M for a spot in the SEC championship. First time they played in 13 years.
It's going to be everything. They're going to be fighting.
Yeah. And the SEC did what they should have done, because A&M is viewed as the little brother, but they have the SEC respect because they've been in the SEC. They made Texas go to A&M. And for years, Texas and Texas A&M fans were arguing. As soon as it was announced, there's like, can't wait to see you here. And they're like, we're not going to be there. And then I don't know why Texas thought that they were going to get some preferential treatment and that they were going to get the first game at home. But I
think because historically they have had it.
Yeah, but the SEC was swiftly like, nah, we riding with ours. You knew here.
Yeah.
Just like the UT thing. Like, there's like UT, Texas. I don't care about nothing. They've been in this conference. This is UT, which is Tennessee. You're Texas,
right?
Even though nationally most people would obviously say UT is Texas.
I would say UT is Texas, but I get it. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I love it. I'm very excited about it. I will be watching it. It is also nice as a Texan to be able to get Texas and Texas A&M again, because to me, I've always thought that was more fun to watch than Texas OU. Texas OU is fun, but to me, Texas and Texas A&M is more fun.
Because there's actually hate there.
Yeah, like culturally, it's like one of the only real rivalries that exist in Texas. Like, actually, like rivalries that exist. So
it's one of the closest rivalries, if not the closest, to Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah, very, 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 very true.
Pure like hatred, and I mean, literally, they hate each other so much that they wouldn't play.
They didn't want to play each other. Yeah,
like so they did I love it. They could to not like. Yeah, so. We love that. ACC.
There will be fights. I'm very excited. The ACC.
Not you're very excited for the fights.
I love when the players get chippy. I love a good fight. I wish that football was like hockey, where the like the refs like actually just push everybody out the way and just let them fight. Like, I'm convinced that I'm convinced that the only reason why it's not like that is because the majority demographic of hockey versus football. But anyways, ACC. SMU, we clinched our spot yesterday. Obviously, we rolled all over Virginia. It was so bad that even the Virginia fans were like, yeah, congrats on the win today. And we hadn't even started playing yet. So love that for us. That was not something that we were complaining about, concerned about. And our opponent will be Miami if they win, and Clemson if Miami loses. Miami plays Syracuse, which means it really could be Clemson.
It could be Clemson.
So that is going to come down to the last second on who we're actually playing. We are finally getting some sort of respect in the fact that we are now projected to go to the Peach Bowl, which means we are projected to win the ACC, which has not been the case up until this week. They had continuously projected Miami to be winning over us, but finally they are seeing the light. So I still think we can beat Miami, and I think we can beat Clemson. I don't really think it matters. I also think we make it into the playoffs either way.
Shout out to the SEC.
So we're probably making it in either way.
We appreciate y'all losing so we can get the teams that we actually want to see up in here.
The teams we actually want to see, like, geez Louise. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Y'all know this whole season I've been like, I don't know. SMU, we're good, but I don't know if we're that good. And da-da-da-da-da. But, you know, we went to a championship last year. So but that's the American. But
shout out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who we would play against. But either way, Mario Cristobal is dying to lose.
Yeah.
So it'd be great if he lost the ACC championship against us.
Been saying it since the summer.
So
I honestly, like, now that you have locked it up, I want Miami to get there because I want you to stomp Miami, although I still think you'll beat Clemson. But it would just be the most Mario Cristobal thing ever for everyone to be like, they're going to win it. They're going to win it. They're going to do it. They're going to be undefeated. They're going to do all these things. And then they lose a game. And everyone's like, but it's still, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. And then they lose to Syracuse. Like perfect.
It would just be great. Well, they've lost one now, haven't they?
No, that's what I was saying. Like, they thought they were going to be undefeated. Then they lose a game. But because of how the game worked,
Georgia Tech.
Expected, like you're saying, everyone was still like, even though they have one loss, they're still Miami, they're still gonna make the playoffs, they're gonna do all these things. And then, as I predicted like 4 weeks ago,
we've been saying Syracuse was gonna be the one. We've been saying it. I feel like now it's probably not.
No, it's gonna happen. It's still gonna happen. I promise you, it's gonna happen. And I will give you why. And this show goes super long, so like we don't always get to do like breakdowns and things. That's something that I'm excited about for the playoffs. Like when we can get deeper into games. Miami's defense sucks, awful, and Kyle McCord be throwing that thing. It's not always accurate, but he be throwing that thing. And here's the thing: Miami may find a way to win because Kyle McCord may throw an inexplicable interception.
I'm sorry, Kyle McCord?
Yes.
Cam Ward? Am I okay?
What?
Wait, you're saying Kyle McCord from Syracuse? Okay. Yes. Please keep going. I thought you were saying Kyle McCord and Miami, and I was like, what?
Yeah. But you know why you're confused? Because they're going to do the same thing. I was literally just about to say Kyle McCord may throw an inexplicable interception, but you know who else might do that? Cam
Ward. I was like, wait, you mean Cam Ward is going to do that? Hold on.
No. I don't.
Both of them niggas.
I don't mean Cam Ward. That's the problem. It's literally going to be who's going to
pass the first. Who's going to throw the interceptions back and forth? They're just going to be handing them out. Oh my God, man.
They're going to be handing them out like Halloween candy, boy, I tell you.
Like,
oh my gosh. Like Thanksgiving turkeys.
Oh my gosh. Look, Marshawn Lynch said, I'm trying to get to Thanksgiving first. I'm going back to the hood. I'm going to hand out turkeys. All right. Go ahead. I'm so sorry. Kyle McCord.
I want to read this for you real quick. Kyle McCord stats on the year. He has 3,946 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions at 65% completion percentage. So it's not always accurate, but he be throwing that thing.
Ew, that is so gross.
Cam Ward has 3,774 yards, 34 touchdowns,
Oh.
And 7 interceptions. So essentially they're the same quarterback. Cam Ward has a little bit more talent and a little bit more talent around him. So he has a couple and I think Syracuse has had a harder schedule too. But either way, this game, like Kyle McCord is going to throw for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. Cam Ward is going to go for 360, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 2 picks. 2 picks and a fumble. It's going to be 700, almost 800 yards of passing offense and 5 combined turnovers, regardless who wins.
I'm screaming.
750 yards passing, 5 turnovers, Book it. That's gonna happen. It's literally who turns the ball over last is gonna lose.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Either way, SMU is in the ACC championship, and that's what matters to me. In the Big 12,
Who knows?
child, talk to us about it next week. We don't damn know.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's either Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, it's either 10, 11, 13, or 12. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
This is all I will tell you is if chalk happens, again, meaning that everyone wins, they all win out, it'll be Arizona State and Iowa State.
Which make me incredibly sad.
Especially in this conference, there has been no chalk. So someone's going to lose. We don't know. Literally, catch us next week. We'll know next week.
Ask us next week. Nobody. Yeah. If I were to, my dream matchup, obviously for the Big 12, would be Colorado BYU. That is what I personally.
I don't want any success for BYU. So
I don't want success for BYU. I want success for Colorado, and I want them to be playing
Colorado, Arizona State.
I would take Colorado, Arizona State.
Not BYU. I just don't want BYU to succeed. I be watching them documentaries. I know what y'all be doing out there.
You know, it is Church of Latter-day Saints. No, is that Utah? No, they're Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
Y'all know y'all's leader is still in jail, right? But anyway.
Also, the school's named after a pedophile.
It is. It is. But that's because they're associated with the Church of Latter-day Saints, which, if you know any history, is...
Anyway,
we got to get off of this.
So I don't want
any we got to get off of it.
I don't want any success for BYU.
I'm wishing success for Colorado.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Colorado is the lowest on the rung. They need the most to happen. I honestly think they might need all three of Arizona.
I think
State
they need all of them to lose.
Yeah,
they do. Well, no, hold on. I think they just need two of them. I will do my Googles. Anyways, group of five.
Yeah, so we can skip it. I just wanted to know if Boise should be concerned, but should they be concerned about the fact that they have to play UNLV and that they could very easily lose this game and not make the playoffs? Yeah. So moving on to our power ranking segment,
don't care.
This is probably very, very wrong, but I tried to basically kind of figure out like who is in the playoffs, who is most likely in, and who is 100% out, just because there's been a lot of change. So the ones that I'm most confident about, Oregon and Ohio State, they're in no matter what.
Right.
Obviously, then of course the Big 12 champ, ACC champ, SEC champ, and G5 is in no matter what. That's correct. 6 spots. Okay. Indiana and Penn State, I'm fairly positive in no matter what. Not no matter what, but who they play next, they should beat both of them. Yes. Indiana plays Purdue, who's the worst team in the Big Ten. They should smack them. Penn State plays Maryland, like the third worst team in the Big Ten. They should smack them. So I think they're in. Notre Dame, and I put this in here for other people because I don't believe this. Notre Dame is in a similar spot to Penn State and Iowa. They play USC. Everyone assumes that they're just going to win that game. I still think they're going to lose.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
But I put this in here because that is the most common opinion, although I disagree. So right now, it's 9 spots. We have 9 spots taken out.
I was just counting. Yes.
We have 9 spots. We have Oregon, Ohio State, because one of them is going to win the Big Ten, and then the loser of that's getting in. We have the Big 12 champ, ACC champ, SEC champ, and G5, of course. And then because they are going to finish 11-1, we have IU and Penn State. And the assumption, which again, I still think USC is going to beat them, is that Notre Dame finishes 11-1, they're in. So who is probable? We have 3 spots left. I put 5 schools on this list. 2 of these 5 are getting in no matter what, because 2 of them are going to win a conference. They're going to win the SEC Correct. Or they're going to win the ACC. The other ones Correct. Have a chance to get in as one of the 3 at-larges. So Georgia is going to be in, most likely. The reason why I have them as probable, though, is they have 2 losses. If they go to the SEC championship game and lose,
they're not getting in. You
Texas,
think?
Huh?
Wait, you're saying you don't know, or you're saying they're not getting in?
I don't know if they're going to get in. And so the conversation around that is like, do you punish teams for the extra game?
I would say, because we had this conversation when we did our mid-season projections where we were saying, like, the SEC loser or the loser of the conference championships usually get in as well. So,
Right. But that
and with
loser
all
will
these
have
3
3
loss teams in
losses.
the SEC, it would make no damn sense to let another 3 loss team in over a team whose third loss was the championship.
So what happens is it wouldn't be one of the other 3 loss teams. It would be like potentially like if Boise loses to UNLV, like they get in, or you could open yourself up for like another. I don't know who it would be. Like it's gotten real convoluted, but like you could open yourself in for one of the 2 loss teams that still exist. Who is? I don't
In
know
the
who.
SEC?
I don't know. I don't know who it would be, but like you run the like. Okay, so for the example is Clemson. If Clemson wins, but Miami wins, so Clemson doesn't get to the championship game, but they beat South Carolina, who is ranked 15. If they beat South Carolina and they have 2 losses and they're on the border, would you put in Clemson over a 3-loss SEC team that lost in the championship? Like that's where the conversation is going to go.
Okay.
And so
Interesting.
And so the conversation that people are having is, do you punish a team for playing a 13th game? Or should they be in essentially no matter what? And then that would make Georgia the only 3-loss team. But it's
I would
because they
venture
made
off
the
to say
conference
that
championship game.
I would venture off to say we let them in at a 3 loss because their third loss was a championship.
Right.
I just don't
And
think we
that
should be entertaining any 3 loss teams who have 3 losses right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but because of that possibility, Georgia's probable. Texas is also probable because one, Texas has to beat Texas A&M, and then
Right.
even if they do that, if Texas loses in the SEC championship game, they're still probably in. But you do open up the Texas has played nobody
conversation. Yeah.
So,
Oh,
like,
that too as well.
like
Yeah.
they like a lot of the SEC teams haven't played nobody, but they legitimately have played nobody. Like they haven't played any of the good teams, and the only good team that they played is Georgia. They would have in this case lost to Georgia twice. If it's a blowout twice, you don't know. So they're both probable because you just don't know. SMU, I think, is in no matter what because they only have 1 loss. So if they go to the championship game and they lose, that's 2 losses. They should still be in. Thanks again to the SEC for losing all those games. We do appreciate your service to our country.
Well, you're not that good, so.
Yeah. Miami is also probable, largely, again, because I think they're going to lose to Syracuse. But if they do not lose to Syracuse, then they're going to be in no matter what, win or loss. But because I think they're going to lose to Syracuse, they're probable. And then Tennessee is a probable as a possibility as well, because they're not going to make the championship game. But as long as they don't lose to Vanderbilt, they're going to have 2
large. Yeah.
And most likely 3-loss. A 2-loss SEC team is getting in. I still think they lose to Vanderbilt, but they may not. So
they're the only 2-loss SEC team left besides Georgia. So
yes.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it makes more sense to, if we're going to put 3 SEC teams in, it'd be winner, loser, and then
Tennessee.
Yeah. And then we stop having the conversation after that. Because
where it gets real messy is if Texas A&M beats Texas and Georgia, they have to get in as the champ. But then what do you do? Because Texas
Georgia,
has
Texas, and Tennessee.
Georgia has 3 losses. Tennessee has 2 losses. Like that's going to get real messy. So
then you put, I'm sorry, Georgia, you didn't make it. You got to put A&M, Texas, and Tennessee. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, you didn't make it. Well, it's the SEC is a mess.
But the conversation that you have is like, yes, Georgia has 3 losses and Texas and Tennessee both have 2, but Georgia's 3rd loss came in the conference championship game. You have to go back to that.
Like, and Texas didn't play nobody, and yeah.
So the SEC is going to be messy.
Interesting.
And then the teams that are out are
na 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 na. Hey, goodbye.
The teams that are out. Where am I at? What's going on?
The teams that are out. Bama.
Bama's out. Ole Miss is out. Colorado's out.
I don't like that.
Army is out.
I don't like that either.
And Texas A&M is out. unless they win
Yes.
the SEC.
Yes. I don't. Whatever. I was gonna have a whole bunch of opinions. It's fine. You guys have heard my opinions about Bama. Whatever. I feel like no, I'm not gonna do it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I just be seeing so many conversations about Bama. I'm just like, gosh, like y'all do realize Nick Saban isn't coaching anymore, right? Like
Y'all realize that this is why Nick Saban left. He saw that
he's
roster.
done.
He saw that team. He said, "I'm good. Let me get on TV."
Said, why do this for a 41st year or however many years he's been doing it? Anyways, okay. That is the playoff picture as of 9 p.m. on today, because obviously they released these rankings on Tuesday. And so we will know for sure at that point. Pre-game power sweep.
This is a week.
I was like, am I still going? We got a lot of games of consequence. And we got some rivalry games because obviously we're nearing the end of the season. At least that's what I'm understanding, because I am not a college football expert. Jordan is, but I am just regurgitating the things that he has told me. Yeah. So
on the last Saturday of the year, for anyone that has any sort of common sense and respect for the sport, is a rivalry game. Not
common sense and respect for the sport. Well, common sense is really coming at a premium in college football space, I'm learning. But on Friday, we got a couple rivalry games. So we got Georgia Tech. First of all, let's back up. Let's back up. MACtion is over, right? So
no.
MACtion is not over.
MACtion this week, yeah.
There will be MACtion this week. But also what is happening this week, because there's this colonistic holiday that we celebrate where we're thankful for the land that we stole. There will also be games all day on Friday.
I'm not thankful for the land. I'm thankful for the apple pie.
I am thankful for the dressing.
For the food.
Exactly. I feel lots of gratitude for the hands that prepared my meal. But anyway, because we celebrate colonialism, they have games all day on Friday. So if you are bored on Friday, there are things to do other than shop these not so Black Friday deals. Every single hour. They basically are running Friday like they're running Saturday. So they're gonna have a 12 o'clock. They're gonna have 12 o'clock window, a 3 o'clock window, and a 7 o'clock window. Do they have a late night window? They have like an 8 o'clock. So on Friday, we do have Georgia Tech and Georgia playing at 12. No, did I just make that up? No, they play at 7:30. We put this out of order. Let me back up. At 12 o'clock on Friday, Minnesota and Wisconsin play. What was the reason why we chose that one?
Wisconsin needs to win to get to bowl eligibility. Otherwise, they're going to have another bad game. Minnesota almost beat Penn State, and so they're going to want this win because, one, it's a rival, and two, so that they can salvage the season that they almost did something special, and now they're just trying to. I don't say that poorly. Like this is like this
it just didn't happen
for them, but like they want this win, and it's a rivalry game. It's always a big game.
It is a rivalry game. So that's the one thing that I still haven't fully learned about is all of the rivalries. Another game at 12 o'clock that is also happening is Oregon State versus Boise State. As you know, we've been talking about this for Boise State. Is it for Boise State? Wait a minute. I'm sorry, my brain.
Boise is Ashton Jeanty, yes.
Right. So we just picked it because of Ashton Jeanty.
Yes.
Sorry. Y'all, we talked about this before the show, and I just can't get my life together. And then, like I said, Georgia and Georgia Tech play at 7:30. Also, Colorado does play Oklahoma State this day. I'm not telling y'all to watch it. I'm just saying that does happen for Colorado. So Friday is a day full of football. You probably will be recovering from the trash football that we're getting from the NFL on Thursday before that. So yay, love that for you.
I also think the NFL and Friends on Friday. I don't know what game's coming on. I don't care. I won't be watching.
They have some games on Friday. Yeah, I think that I don't know who they are, because to be honest,
is this the Netflix game? One of the
Netflix. No, that's Christmas. That's Christmas.
Okay.
So on Friday for Black Friday, we have for the NFL. It's the Chiefs and the Raiders are playing that day.
Ew.
Anyways, college football. So speaking of college football, then we have Saturday the 30th. So in the noon slot, obviously we have what the television and apparently what Google is saying is the greatest rivalry in sports.
And they are
Ohio State and Michigan. We actually had a whole discourse about this last night, y'all, because I didn't believe that was like a real thing.
And for those of you who understand, Of course, I sent her the picture of the blankets that the babies get in the hospital. This runs deep. It runs deep. I'm telling you, you'll go into Chick-fil-A and they'll have red X's over M's on their menu. Like it is serious. Every single M on Ohio State Stadium gets blocked off. A lot of almost anything on campus does it. It's huge. Like, I mean, literally don't like it's that team up north. Don't call them by their name. You block out every M. Yeah, it's big. The hatred is there. It's over 100 years. And
Michigan fans are just going to be so disappointed.
So they call it the game, like
the game.
And people know what you're talking about. Like, come on, like, be for real.
The game. I think College Game Day will be there, right? Is that the College Game Day game? No, Texas A&M is.
Yes.
So yes,
Texas A&M.
Feel free to get up on Saturday morning, afternoon, whatever, and watch Ohio State smack those cheaters. I mean Michigan. And then. Correct. And then simultaneously, South Carolina and Clemson will be playing. And of course, as you know, this is a game of consequence for Clemson. They need to win if they want a chance at the ACC championship. So let's hope that South Carolina smacks them.
Yeah. This is a big rivalry game. And
it's a rivalry game. I keep forgetting. Clemson is in South Carolina, isn't it?
Right. It's something that you always forget. You never really think about it, but they are in South Carolina. Yes.
I never know off the top of my head where Clemson is situated. I just know it's somewhere in like the South North.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Well, honestly, football is why like this rivalry is where I know. Because like Clemson, where the hell is Clemson? But they're in South Carolina, yes.
Clemson is in South Carolina. Learn your geography, people. Then for the midday, so from the 2 to 4-ish area, Notre Dame plays USC. As we know, this is a game of consequence, I believe. Another one?
Yes.
For Notre Dame?
If Notre Dame loses, they're probably out of the playoffs.
So
if USC loses, they're not going to make a bowl game. Oh, no, sorry. That's not true. USC beat UCLA. So they're both eligible. But
yes,
if Notre Dame loses, they're probably not going to make the playoffs.
So, root for whoever you feel like you want to root for. Another game of a consequence happening at this time is Miami-Syracuse. We've talked about this game ad nauseum. You know what this deal is. Basically, by the end of Saturday, we're going to know who is in the ACC championship, who's playing SMU. And then we also have another game of consequence. Again, a game that we've already discussed, and that is Auburn and Bama. Number one, it's a rivalry game.
Consequence.
Sorry, it's a rivalry game. That's what I meant.
Yeah. And praying for Bama's downfall. 4-loss Bama. I will ascend
the brand. The brand.
If we
will both levitate.
Yeah, if we get 4-loss Bama in the first year that Nick Saban retires.
Oh, the joy. I'm so sorry to the Bama fans. I love you, Janelle, because I know you listen to us every week. I love you so much, but girl, you know how I feel about Bama.
You've had enough.
Auburn and Bama.
Let us have our fun.
I'm screaming. Auburn and Bama are they have pretty long time rivalry as well, right? I mean, I know them to be rivals, but I don't know how long it's been.
I only typically know the ones in the North because I know roughly when they do it. And the Big Ten, in my opinion, is like the best with the pageantry. So they always say like this is the 100 and blank meeting or whatever. But these are both Alabama schools. They're in-state rivals, and so as long as they've both been playing football, they've been rivals.
It's called the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, whatever that number is, I couldn't tell you, but they're both in Alabama. They're the huge rivals. They're the state schools there. And for however long they've been playing, it's probably up. It
started in 1893.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say it's probably up near 100, especially because they're state schools. I just don't know because I don't know when these schools were created.
It started in 1893. It is traditionally played on Thanksgiving weekend. Go figure. And then they agreed to do some other stuff. Anyways, the point is Alabama is on a current win streak. They've been winning every single time since 2020. So I guess you could say it's a game of consequence in that sense.
Last year.
What'd you say?
I said that Auburn's been close, including last year.
So who knows what'll happen? And then of course, prime time. Listen, people, we've been talking about this the whole damn show. Get your popcorn together, walk your dog, make sure they've all been relieved, get the kids to bed early or put them in a bath, do something. Sit your ass down and watch.
This game is going to be good. You might leave them in there.
Well, yeah, put them in the bath. Put them in the bath because it's time for them to go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like depending on how old they are, or bribe them so that way they can stay up and get off your nerves. So you can watch Texas and Texas A&M. That's the only game really that you should be watching during this time frame. I mean, I'm looking, I don't see anything else that's really worth.
I don't remember.
I mean, if you want to watch Oregon run all over Washington during the commercial breaks, like you can do that.
Like, I'm going to, but I'm not gonna be excited about it.
Yeah, click around. LSU, Oklahoma is also playing. Florida State. I mean, really, just watch Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah, the SEC needs to do better with their rivalries. Like, and I understand it's new and things like, but the games that you play at the end of the year should be a little bit better, in my opinion. I don't know who. Well, first of all, Oklahoma should still be playing Oklahoma State, but they're scared. That is such a Southern thing, right? Like it's the same thing that happened with Texas A&M, Texas. As soon as they're out of conference, they just refuse to play each other. I don't think there's anything that could happen that would stop Ohio State and Michigan from playing. And like Oregon State are still playing, Washington State are still playing, like, and then which is weird because you also have that with other states in the South, right? South Carolina, Clemson, 2 different conferences, but they play. Georgia Tech, 2 different conferences, but they play. Kentucky, Louisville, 2 different conferences, but they play. And then it's just something about the Texas, the Oklahoma, the whatever. Like they literally just like don't let Houston come in because if Houston gets any money, that's where all the people are. They're gonna be good. Don't play Texas A&M. Don't play Oklahoma State. It's just like. It's just weird. Like I don't like it.
I have no explanation for it. I really couldn't tell you. I'm gonna go with the scared, just like you said.
It literally exists in the SEC. These are SEC ACC matchups. Iowa State, which should Iowa has a million rivalries, which is why Iowa State doesn't happen in the last game. And Iowa State has their other rivalry with Kansas State. It's called Farmageddon. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So that one makes sense that they don't play on the last one because they have another rival. But why Oklahoma State, no matter if conference, that should be the last game. But and the SEC does it. There's proof that they do it. We see it with multiple teams. Like
wow.
The first one was intentional. The second one was not. Something just fell.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I can't tell you why. Anyways, then there's After Dark. Go to bed. Or go out. Do something else. Do something other than watch the football because there's really not much going on. I will say if you feel like it, BYU does play, but they're playing Houston.
Why the hell wasn't the Holy War on this weekend? I remember being mad about this. I remember being mad about this. When the schedule dropped, Houston, and you're in the same conference. You're literally in the same conference, and you said last game of the season. Houston. Oh wait, does Utah play? Nobody cares about Utah State. Who does Utah play? There's maybe
Utah
another rival. If it's Utah State, I'm gonna be so mad.
They play. I don't even see them. Hold on. That's UConn. They play UCF.
They play fucking UCF on Friday. This is so dumb. It was right there. And it could have been the Friday game. We could have got Utah.
Jordan is actively losing it, ladies and gentlemen. I think his soul may have left his body for a moment and came back.
Stupid.
Okay, well,
playing UCF, BYU's playing Houston. What the fuck is wrong with these people? It was right, and it's in the same conference. Like, I don't get it, but I get Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, especially so quickly not figuring it out or hiding from each other, like it's bullshit or whatever. But you're in the same conference, and Houston. The Holy War should be the last game of the year. The Holy War should be the last game of the year. The Holy War should be the last game of the year. The Holy War should be the last game of the year. It's right fucking there.
The Holy War should be the last game of the year, just in case y'all missed that.
And I don't care about no New Age fucking nickname. It's the Holy War, and it'll always be the Holy War. There's a couple where they're like, we don't want to call it that anymore. We're going to change the name. No. Unless the name is actively racist, and I don't think any of the rivalry games are actively racist, they're fine. And even if they were actively racist, y'all didn't make fucking Ole Miss change their name. Why you care now? 2-minute warning. If you didn't know, Ole Miss is racist. Like the name.
Oh my gosh!
is
A
racist.
school in Mississippi
No, no,
is
no, no,
racist?
no. I'm not talking about the school. The name, the moniker, Ole Miss, is directly tied to racism. It is what the slaves used to call the president's wife or some shit, and somehow they made it the name. It is not Ole Mississippi. It is legitimately racist, and it is not what their mascot and branding used to be. They changed it to that. It used to be something else, and they changed it to Ole Miss. It is actively racist. Not like, oh no, there's a school in the South that happens to do some racism. No, no, no. It is legitimately in the name Ole Miss, the creation, the changing of the branding. It is directly tied to slavery. It is racist. And people know it, and they won't change it.
So I look shocked, but I'm not, because this is America. Everything is racist. That's crazy. I didn't know that, but that's not even shocking. Just it's not like, it's just because my 2 minute warning is actually related to that. Kind of, not really. But if you can do yours, we both have 2 topics, which is hilarious.
Yeah, mine is quick. Orlando wins the NWSL championship. This is huge. They have a black coach. Their coach is in his 2nd year, I believe. And if you follow soccer, and even if you don't follow soccer, there is a woman. Her name is Marta. For the fact that her name is Marta, to tell you everything you need to know. When you reach one name level, that's who you are. She is the Messi of women's soccer, but even more important, because obviously men's soccer was already there. Like, she is one of the torchbearers from women's soccer. Like, it just is what it is. Like, women's soccer is still globally like not where it should be. Like, she got this shit out the mud, and she has her first championship.
And it was the first game that her mother watched in person in America.
Oh, I did not know that, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's big. Shout out to Orlando. And they were like in the dredge a couple years ago. They were one of the worst teams, turned it around in 2 years. And then the last thing, Kendrick dropped a surprise album, GNX, and it is perfect.
So good.
I personally love it because I like Kendrick, but I get so tired of the fake intellectualism from people who clearly don't read a book. And it's so like well-intentioned, but it's so annoying. Like, I'm really starting to get like over the conscious rap thing, and Kendrick like turned me off a little bit, especially with like Mr. Morale in the Mr. Morale in the Big Steppers or whatever, because like I understood the message that he was trying to get, but like how he did it was just super ignorant, in my opinion. Like even the song where he was talking about his cousin, but was being like transphobic in the song, and like I get that the song was about transphobia, but like, you know, like the thing that I put, and the thing that I put is like, imagine if a white rapper did the same thing, but to make the point in the chorus they said the N-word the whole time.
Yeah,
like you can't do it. Like even like, yeah, sure, the one song was to promote domestic violence or whatever, but it sure as hell sounded like you were advocating for domestic violence. Like it's just very much like you're technically,
it can be misinterpreted,
on the right side of history, but you're not actually smart enough to realize the mistakes that you made in this, and the message is lost because it just tied like the fake intellectualism in rap and things with people who whatever. This album is none of that. It's just him in a room having a literally psychotic break in front of his microphone, and it is beautiful. The mixing, literally the first song. Why does this dude is like, bro, he's like, I used to bump the Carter 3. I wore my Rolly chain proud. The irony, I think my hard work let Lil Wayne down, whatever though. Like, oh my God. Like, that shit was crazy. And like, it was crazy. And the funniest part,
the fact that you already know the bar is really sad.
I had to. That one was perfect, especially because like someone explained, I saw this somewhere, but like I kind of remember this happening. Like, he used to talk about how like Lil Wayne was their like guiding light when he was coming up, because he was like, Lil Wayne was like the hardest working rapper. It's like, we're not working hard enough, which is where the like Lil Wayne, my hard work let Lil Wayne down. But like, it's just really good, and it's none of the fake intellectual stuff, and it's also like very truthful, like the Heart Part 6. I was really glad that he finally admitted that he's the reason we didn't get Black Hippie. And like, I'm never one of those people that's like, I listen to this person first. Like, that's stupid. But like, legitimately, like, I've been listening to like Kendrick, Schoolboy, Absol, J Rock, whatever album that made them popular, I was listening to them before that. Like me and my friends, we were super on the like hot new hip hop. So like we were keyed into like Black Hippie and like all these things, and we thought it was gonna be this thing before Good Kid, Mad City dropped and like all this stuff, and then it never happened. And there was always like little like rumblings, but you felt like it was Kendrick because then Good Kid, Mad City dropped and he blew up and became the feature artist, but like he's never admitted it. And because they're all still friends, like none of them would like wanted to outwardly say like it's Kendrick's fault, but like you kind of knew it. And so he finally admitted that like essentially his ego and his like how he was treating his fame, which he's talked about in other songs, is the reason we never got the Black Hippie project. And it's just like the Dreamville shit that everyone loved because it was really good. We were supposed to get that with TDE, with Black Hippie. So great album. That's all. I'm gonna be listening to it all day tomorrow.
Not all day. That's actually how I lost my headphones. Was I was trying to listen to the album, and then one of the people I was working with started talking to me, and I don't know where I put my headphones after that. So I listened to the first song. But I'm getting to that. Speaking of things that have dropped that are amazing, Wicked is the movie of the year. Wicked is the movie of the year. That's all. I will be going to see it again. I went to see it on opening night. It is fabulous. If you guys don't know, which I'm not sure why you don't know, but if you are unaware, Wicked is a musical. There are songs in it and people sing.
You're gonna tell me that I'm fucking wrong?
Like,
and what was her sister? She came down in a bubble, dog.
In a bubble. Like, I'm just saying, Ariana Grande didn't get casted because she was pretty. She got casted because she sings within the range that is required for the Glinda character. Okay. Cynthia Erivo was not casted just because she was Black. She was casted because she has the range to sing like Idina Menzel, who is the original Elphaba from Broadway. So just in case y'all were unaware, it is a musical. I know that we've had a lot of movie musicals come out in the last couple of years, but this one was always a musical, okay? And if you're not aware, Wicked is the story about Elphaba, which is the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, who Dorothy eventually kills by dousing her with water. So this is basically her villain origin story. And Glinda the Good Witch and her were best friends back at Shiz, where they went to school and learned sorcery. And so the whole story of Wicked is about that. Now, the way that the movie is set up is that Wicked is a pretty long show. So it does have an intermission. It has an act 1 and an act 2. So the movie that's out right now is just act 1. And then act 2 comes out next year. So you're only going to get half the story when you go see it. But the way that it's set up is perfect. Like, you're not going to feel like you're missing anything. I think it is an Oscar worthy film. And I do not say that lightly. I am a film snob. I don't think they could have casted it any more perfectly. I don't think they could have arranged the songs any more perfectly. I don't think that Cynthia could have been any greener. I think every single choice that they made for every single character was perfect. Ariana Grande, and I'm not an Ariana Grande stan. I mean, she's fine.
Really?
Like, I'm not like, oh my God, Ariana Grande. But like, she was the perfect Glinda. She was perfect. She was quirky and funny, and she added so much color to the character. I mean, truly, like, get with your family on Thanksgiving and go watch this movie. It was so good. It was so good. It did not feel like 2 hours. It felt like 15 minutes. And John Chu, who's the director of this film, like, have you ever watched a movie and you can just tell like how much respect the director has like for the story?
Yes.
I don't know if you know what I mean, but like you can just tell that the director really, really loved the story and brought so much to it. That's exactly how Wicked felt. Like you could tell that John Chu really was going out of his way to respect the story because it is one of the best Broadway shows in history. Like, you're not taking some little show that nobody knows about and making a movie about it. You're taking one of the most iconic shows. So it was great. My other 2-minute warning, and I'm gonna have to make this real quick. So I went to Virginia. Obviously, I went for the game. And part of our what am I trying to say? Part of our experience there, we have like an event on Friday night, the night before, and then we have the actual game, the tailgate, all that other stuff. So on Friday night, we ended up going to the Jefferson Monticello, which, if y'all don't know what that is the land that Thomas Jefferson lived on. And they basically have turned it into like this museum sort of situation where you can like tour the house that they built and like the grounds and like see, the 5,000 acres where he owned 607 people. So that was the experience, was like touring this house and like hearing all of this lore about Thomas Jefferson and the type of man that he was, and the fact that he founded University of Virginia, and that he was, he wrote the Declaration of Independence, yickety, yickety, yickety. And it was a very emotional experience because obviously slavery is very, very permanent. Slavery permeates this whole experience because slaves are who built this house, right? And the tour people were very like honest about that, and they were very like, the fingerprints of the slaves are in the bricks. Like, they literally made the bricks from the Virginia clay and made them and then built the house out of them. And they just talked very openly and candidly about how much slavery played a role in Thomas Jefferson's success. And I really appreciated their candidness about it, because we live in a time right now where it seems like that history is truly, people are wanting to hide it and act like that's not something that happened, and it is. So I just highly encourage, if you are not from a Southern state, or if you are from a Southern state and you have not had the opportunity to tour or see or learn anything from a plantation, your life will be changed. That's all I can say, is that your life will be changed. Go find a plantation, because there is one. If you're in the South, there is one near you that you can tour and that you can learn about. It doesn't have to be Jefferson Monticello. That's just the one I went to. It was the first plantation tour I ever took, and I was in tears by the end of it, just because of like just seeing like the quarters that the slaves had to live in and like cook in, and it just really like puts into perspective like this nation was built off of like owning people. And that's really jacked up. I don't want to end on that note, but I'm encouraging y'all to learn some history, because we really are doomed to repeat it if we don't learn. So that's
Personally,
my 2-minute warning.
I will never, but it's probably a good thing. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
You should do it. I honestly never thought I would want to do it either, but because it was part of my job, like I waited until a minute before the tour started to decide if I was going to do it or not. Like, my coworkers kept going, "Hey, do you want to do it? You don't have to. Like, you can just."
And I definitely wouldn't have did it with the people you did it with. But
my coworkers are pretty progressive individuals.
That don't mean nothing.
No, well, I'm saying like they were very like understanding of like why I didn't want to do it initially, because I was just like, I don't want to go learn about this man, and I don't want to hear them celebrating him and all this other stuff. But once they started talking and I realized like they were actually being honest, and they weren't going to sit here and act like, oh, Thomas Jefferson was this great man, ignore the part where he owned 600 people. They were like, no, he owned 607 people and he only freed 7 of them. And 4 of the 7 were his own kids. Like, that really puts it into perspective of like this, a lot of our history and some of the most celebrated figures in this nation have connections to that. So it's like, if you don't know enough about it, maybe going and seeing it in person and visually might help you really internalize and absorb what this really was. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, it just happened so long ago, and oh, whatever, like it's just this arbitrary thing that's from the past. So when you see it, you're like, no, this really happened, but it's not for everyone, I will say.
I won't be doing that.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you so much for completely just shafting my point.
That didn't shaft your point. I said I won't be doing it. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't. I think there's benefit in that, but I know myself, and I also know my history, so I don't need to do that. I've also been to like similar things, so yeah. And I am gonna go like to the African American History Museum in DC, which is gonna have enough of that. I'm not going to no plantation. Actually, that's not true. The only plantation that I'm going to is the Uncle Nearest Bourbon Factory, because that is on a plantation. But
that works.
I love bourbon, so I'm going to be going on that tour at some point whenever I can get to Tennessee. But you won't catch me on no plantation. But fun fact, and hold on. I don't want to say this wrong.
Learn some history, people. That's all I'm saying, is learn some history, especially if you are this shade. Thank you.
And this show is long, so we're gonna end it. But
It is a
have
2-hour show.
a fun fact that I want to give you.
I'm the fun fact person, but okay.
Correct. One of Thomas Jefferson's slaves is the reason that we have mac and cheese.
Oh yeah, it's his main guy.
James Heming. It is like French fries and some other things. It's a story that I'm not going to tell because I don't want to get it wrong, but it's essentially they made some sort of deal and he got sent over to France to learn how to cook, and he brought a lot of things back.
They both went together. So Thomas went because he was a ambassador and he brought James with him. And then basically because Black people were free in France, James wanted to stay. And then the deal was if James learned all this stuff and taught another slave all of it, then he would be able to go free. So then he ended up teaching his younger brother all of the food and all the things that he learned. And then he was one of the 7 people that Thomas Jefferson freed.
Yep. So as always, we do appreciate you for listening. As a reminder, this show is on YouTube. We are both beautiful. You should look at our beautiful faces while we tell you about all these sports. You should also see our facial reactions. But I understand if you don't like video podcasts. I don't like video podcasts. I don't listen to any of my podcasts on video, but
because he lives in the dark ages, because video podcasts is where it's at. I listen to all of my podcasts on video and it really does enhance the experience.
Yeah. So either way,
when the people are beautiful,
like and subscribe and follow. Please continue to listen, whether on this or video. If you do go to YouTube, it is at Get Defensive Podcast Network. No, that's not true.
Get Defensive Sports Network.
Get Defensive
Sports Network. GDSN, people.
Specifically put sports in there because anything else could have let the mind wander. Get Defensive Sports Network on YouTube. Please subscribe, even if you aren't going to watch. And if you are going to watch, please share. We're trying to get up. We will see you next week.